I'm Heidi Rader with the University of Alaska Fairbanks Cooperative Extension Service. We're here at the 2023 Southeast Alaska Farmers Summit, and I'm here with Ed Buyarski with Edible Landscaping. He's a landscape business owner and green nursery owner, and we're going to talk a little bit about what he does and why he does it, and maybe some tips for anyone looking to get into that type of operation. So, Ed, what got you excited about growing things and landscaping and doing what you do?
I've been growing stuff, gardening. We're just thinking back about it, over 60 years. Starting out in Upper Michigan, my father would let me order a couple of seed packets from, I remember, Gurney Seeds and Farmer Seed and Nursery catalogs. Weird stuff to grow, like peanuts and luffa sponges and other stuff. And have been growing, gardening throughout all the time. I mean, I guess in college I had some mostly legal plants in my dorm room. And then wherever we've lived, we've gardened.
And we were just chatting a little bit, and it sounds like one of your main goals is to help people grow edible things in their space instead of lawns.
Very much so. I mean, in town, the various places I've lived, I grew up mowing way too much lawn in my youth, and eventually got hay fever. But so less lawn is good, no lawn is better. And I want to teach people, how to grow some food, knowing how expensive it is to grow food in Southeast Alaska, and how challenging it can be to get fresh food. And the fresher the better, and walk out the door and into the garden and pick some fresh stuff, including hopefully some fresh herbs to go with the garlic and potatoes and peas and carrots and all the other stuff that we can grow well here.
So for a beginning gardener, like what might be a top crop or variety or both that you would recommend they grow?
Potatoes, edible pod peas, and from there, carrots, take a little more care, thinning and other stuff. I mean, that's a really good start. There's lots of other things, and growing in containers, if you've only got an apartment with a deck, maybe, would be a great start. And then I counsel people, well, look around you where you live in your neighborhood and see if you can see some ground that isn't being gardened, or get to know some older people who maybe used to be gardening and aren't gardening now. And I've promoted and have been a sharecropper. So just another way that people can get ground to grow in, even if they don't own it.
And are you actually growing crops to sell, or is it mostly the perennials? And you mentioned you grow seeds and save seeds.
So I started out just growing for ourselves. We had a couple kids. We, grew up in Southeast Alaska. And so initially it was just growing food for ourselves. And then gradually people, and I had some flowers. I wasn't doing flowers at first. And then, maybe a few flowers would be nice. And some edible flowers are good. And then people started to ask me about, gee, I see you're growing some nice stuff. Or I'd share produce. Well, can you help me with mine? And it started out slow. I was raising our two kids too while my wife was working full time in Petersburg and then Sitka. But that's where the landscaping end of things started. And then once we moved to Juneau, then as I'm growing more plants, more food, and can grow more than we could eat, then I'd start to sell some, as well as with perennials. I started dividing perennials and selling some of those, primroses especially. It's a specialty. And then folks say, well, what about some fruits and berries? And so then I started bringing them in from down south. And so it's
The
grown
plants.
and grown. Bringing in the plants, and some of it's dividing our own. Some of it I learned to graft fruit trees. So the business it's a growing business.
Are you shipping any of those plants? Or
Yes. Well, of course, I'm shipping in from down south, out of Seattle, by the barge containers. But then folks ask me, I live in these various other communities, and so I do ship out, especially bare root trees, fruit trees, berry bushes. Seeds are easy. But seed potatoes in the springtime is another one that folks contact me, and so we can ship them. The potatoes and seeds can easily mailed. Luckily, Alaska Seaplanes flies to many of these little communities, and I can bundle up a bunch of bare root trees tightly in a garbage bag. They will cheerfully haul them over, which is the best way to get them around
That's great.
quickly.
so that's a good portion of your business, and then the landscaping and kind of consulting type.
All of that, right. As I mature, I like consulting. Consulting's easy on the body. Go over and usually I tell people, well, in an hour of my time, I can probably give you 5 to 10 years worth of ideas. And certainly they can come out and visit my place. They can see the plants I'm growing, or whether it be Japanese maples or apple trees or cherry trees.
Yeah.
You can see them growing here. If they come at the right time of year, they can taste them. Again, that helps sell more.
Yeah. So what do you see as the biggest challenge with growing in Southeast?
The rain, probably. Slugs, definitely. The rain is more, the weather in general is less predictable. Last year, I've got a weather little station at home, and so I've been keeping track from year to year, more or less. Last year, I measured over 105 inches at my house, and I'm on the dry end of things in Juneau. It's appalling.
That's incredible.
I'm hoping for less this year. We've lived in some of the other towns in the Southeast, which average usually in the 80 to 100 inch range. But we set an all-time record in Juneau last year.
Wow.
And it's already been wet this year. And the slugs, yes. And, I'm probably to blame for some of the slug problems just because I'm growing so many different products. I mean, they love the potato vines and the lettuce and the cabbage and broccoli and cauliflower and other stuff. And we can make the rounds with our ammonia water spray and use Sluggo. But, we're feeding the slugs and they're benefiting, so we have to somehow control them. It's a challenge. And throw in a few bears and some porcupines. And luckily, I don't have moose in our neighborhood.
Yeah. And are you growing are you covering many of your crops with low tunnels or high tunnels?
Yes, more plastic than ever before. I scrounge and scavenge, collapse Costco shelters, piece them back together, cover them with clear plastic, terrific. Old boat shelters and stuff, I've cobbled together a couple of those to make a 16 by 48 foot greenhouse, large heavy duty hoop house. And then the smaller ones, I use 4 foot wide boxes, so 10 foot long PVC pipe is perfect to make hoops to cover those. And again, it helps, we can control the moisture level. We can maybe keep it a little drier so the slugs find it less attractive, and it makes plants grow better. So, and I'm moving, I've got hoops, I scavenge and scrounge all over the place. So,
what are you excited to try this year for the first time?
now that's a good question. I did just plant my first plum trees last fall. I don't know that I'll get plums this year, maybe a year or two yet. Certainly I've got a couple of new varieties of potatoes. I'm trying to restrain myself. Years ago, one year I grew 40 varieties. That's too many. Every year I try some new tomatoes, and we'll see. We'll see if some of those are as good or better than my old favorites like Sun Gold.
Yeah, I feel like the experimentation aspect of gardening is always keeps you a little bit interested, but you don't want to experiment too much.
Oh, there's
You have
every,
your tried and true varieties.
but every year is a new experiment, because conditions change. So something that grew well last year maybe won't do so well this year. I've seen that with the different garlic varieties I grow. Some are much better than others, depending on the conditions.
So, what about a favorite tool or resource? What is a tool you couldn't live without?
Small hand tool, something called a homatic, and it has 3 tines and then a small chopping blade on the other hand. I mean, that's terrific for scratching, weeding, planting. I mean, I use it for planting transplants a lot. Bigger tools, it's a toss-up between a digging fork, garden fork, and I got multiple names. Basically, it's a long-handled, usually 4-tined potato digger or cultivator or otherwise. So those are the ones certainly I use the most. I've owned rototillers. I haven't rototilled anything in many years, even though I've got 4-foot wide boxes. It just throws the soil out of the boxes, so I don't use that.
So you just kind of till
And I do hand, so it's hand moving the soil. My body tells me sometimes enough already, but I try not to be tilling, turning as much as I used to. If we don't disturb the soil so much, as long as I stay off it and don't compact it.
Okay. And are you gardening organically, and what are your primary
Yes.
fertilizers?
I'm not certified organic,
Sure.
but I do between local seaweed, of course. My neighbor brings me a couple dump truckloads of horse manure every year. I feel blessed. He just laughs. And I use it in making new garden boxes for people. And that includes perennial beds and other stuff. Primroses, love it, among others, and delphiniums, you name it. But otherwise, I do import organic supplements from fish bone meal is a common one. Let's see, langbeinite, which is high potassium. I use a fair amount of wood ashes and then fish scraps. And even though we have a lot of bears, I'm real careful with it to bury the fish scraps with the horse manure and the seaweed. And then there's a tremendous quantity of coffee grounds. I don't drink coffee, but coffee grounds, I mean, garbage cans full are available from the people who make coffee for all those other folks. And I stop in every week or every other week and get more coffee grounds to mix in the compost. The worms love it. And then I use a tremendous amount of cardboard, again, as initial weed barrier on top of a lawn to build new boxes, or at the bottom underneath my wood chip paths, covered paths, and other stuff too. So it's, some's imported, some's local, and it works. And
Awesome.
we can grow a lot with that.
Great way to recycle and build your own soil. So, what about a favorite resource, whether a online source or maybe an agency that's helped you out, or
I think the Extension Service and the Master Gardeners. I mean, I think back to when I was gardening back in Michigan. And my father was a great gardener, and he used, well, it was cow manure plus fertilizer back then. Then I got off on my own, and thinking back now, we had acreage back in Michigan. We even had a tractor. And boy, I was a terrible gardener. So moving to Alaska and learning where it's a lot tougher. Back there we had lots more sun, more summer heat, real soil. Here it's different. So I've learned to make soil and to use the resources and learn what fertilizers work well, locally made or imported.
Great.
And then I took the Master Gardener course in Petersburg in the 80s, and
Oh, wow.
that really, really helped a lot.
That's great.
And I've learned since.
Awesome. So what keeps you excited about growing year after year and helping others?
Food. I mean, that's, in a word, food. And even when I'm traveling, my wife is very tolerant of my urban foraging. I mean, I'm always looking for food, fresh roadkill, whatever. And then, what can we cook with it? We watch a fair number of cooking shows, learning different combinations of food and spices and things that, well, that's darn strange. And then you taste it and wow, that's really tasty. So yes, food for ourselves, just my wife and I at home. But then now that after the end of COVID, potlucks, I miss potlucks a lot. So again, it's food and socializing in person, like this conference. I mean, it's a really good thing.
Well, that's awesome, and that's the cool thing about gardening is, you're reducing the transportation of the food, but food waste is a big contributor to climate change too, and so, I think when you can grow it right out your back door, then it's less likely to get old in the fridge, and you're less likely to overbuy at the grocery store too, but foraging and finding food where you can too is that's a great way to reduce food waste as well.
And we compost our own. I mean, in that horse manure pile, I can compost anything.
Yeah,
I
love it.
So.
Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing what you know, and look forward to the rest of the conference.
Me too. Thank you.
All right, thanks.